Right, Graham,
Cool.
Good to see you again.
And you?
I'll just start with bodies-wise. How did you fare last night? How have you come through?
Yeah, reasonably good. I think we're just checking a couple of players this morning with a couple of knocks that they got, but nothing too major. So they're ready to go again. Obviously, for the weekend, quick turnaround again. But no, they generally came through okay.
How's Matty Platt? Obviously, he wasn't involved on Tuesday night.
Yeah, he's coming back. He was doing a little bit of running around the pitch this morning when we were training. So we're expecting him to be part of the training squad later on next week. Fingers crossed if he continues his protocol in the way it is. So we hopefully have him back within 7 to 10 days as a training player. Then we have to obviously get him back up to speed to match fitness. So fingers crossed that keeps going smoothly.
Usual weekly question: Jamie Walker, Alex Patterson, the longer term absentees. How are they?
Pato's he was running around the pitch with Platty, so but he's a little bit. I think his recovery is a little bit longer. Jamie Walker's joined in training today and on Monday as well. So we'll see how he sort of presents tomorrow after today's training, because he's done considerably more than he has done in previous days. But he's looking good, to be fair. So we just want to make sure he's physically ready. I think mentally he's been ready for a couple of weeks. He's desperate to get out there and be part of the squad. But we just obviously he's been out for quite a while now, and we don't want anything serious going wrong again. So fingers crossed he's fine tomorrow. But it's good to see him back out on the training pitch. He's he's a good player to have around.
Yeah, I'm sure that gives a boost to everybody, seeing that Jamie Walker's back in at least training. Depending on how he reacts then, Graham, might he be in contention for Saturday, or would that be too soon?
I'm not sure yet. I have to speak to Jamie about it as well, and the medical staff, because he has been out for probably 3 months or so, 3.5 months, and he's only trained with us this week. He has done a lot of physical training with the medical staff prior to that, but getting that competitive level, the experience of having a tackle and all that sort of thing, that's only been exposed to him this week. So we'll sort of make a decision on that maybe on Friday, when we've let him have his day off tomorrow, see how he presents after that, and make the best decision for the team and for Jamie.
In Jamie's case, is it almost accentuated somewhat? Because, having spoke to your predecessors about Jamie and yourself as well, we know he's the kind of player that will put his body on the line come what may, but do you have to manage his own expectations in some degree as well to maybe protect himself from himself at times? Yeah,
I know what you mean, but he's almost... he's a player that plays on the edge and plays, in that sort of manner where it's all out. He doesn't play in a, I would say a controlled way. He sort of plays a little bit, street football almost. He'll throw himself into tackles. He'll take people on. He'll shoot. He'll cross. He'll run back to defend. He's an all-action player. So I think if you're going to ask him to sort of, control himself and manage himself, I don't think you'll get the Jamie Walker that we need, and I think he'll feel hindered by that as well. So that's why the training is so important to us, that we expose him to as much of it as possible before letting him loose in the battle of a game. But I think when Jamie's fully fit and firing, we even in my short time we know the quality he brings to our team. So. It would be the sooner we get him back, the better for our selection. But we just have to make sure he is right.
In terms of Dan Oyegoke, I know I've asked you about him recently, but are you any closer to knowing when he might be returning to you?
We've been in contact with him for a few weeks, and he played a bounce game at Brentford last night. I think he got 60 minutes or so. So he's due to come back up here tomorrow and train with us on Friday. So I was speaking to him last week, and he's desperate to. He was supposed to come back up on Monday, but Brentford had a B team game that he could play in. So we, they said, look, we can play him in that game to get more match exposure, which he won't get with us because we can't get any bounce games at the moment. So it was better just to delay it 2-3 days to allow him to play in that. And the report we had this morning was he got through the game, 62 minutes of it, really, really good. And I'm due to speak to him this afternoon, see how he felt, and then the plan is for him to travel back up tomorrow and hopefully be with us Friday morning.
How much are you looking forward to working with someone like Dan Oyegoke? You barely had any time with him before you come through the door.
Yeah, that's right. I remember he made a good impression on us in the first 3 days before our first game. Came on in that game, unfortunately went back off injured after 10 minutes, and that's it. We haven't seen him since. So, but even in those 3 days, we saw what a really good athlete he is, how comfortable he is in possession, but what a good lad he is as well. He seemed really popular, really upbeat and positive, and the chats I've had with him since he went back to Brentford, he's always been desperately keen to get back and play. So he'll be a welcome addition back into the squad. I think it was the right decision from us to keep him signed on with us for the loan, because and it's turned out really prudent, really, because the injuries we've had, that he comes back into it and he's ready to go. So it will be almost like, for me anyway, like signing another player or a new player, because we've only had him for 10 minutes basically of our time here. So looking forward to seeing him, because he's a great guy.
Appreciate you haven't had that much time with him to fully understand his game from your perspective, Graham, but we've seen him in a variety of positions prior to your time at the football club. He's been used as a right wing back, he's been used as a right back, a centre back, he was even used as a central midfielder towards the back end of your predecessor's time. How do you best see Dan Oyegoke?
I'm not sure yet. That's it. I think because he came on at left wing back for us in that game against Barrow, so because we had an injury to Liam Ridehouse. But I've spoke a few times about players being adaptable to positions and using their qualities rather than try and pigeonhole them into one certain spot on the team. Do they have the attributes that we need for that particular game? Where do we need those attributes? Is it at the back? Is it out on the flanks? Is it in the middle of midfield? So I think he's just a player that's got good all-round ability, desperately wants to do well. So I think those positions you mentioned are his prime positions, to be fair. I think he could play in the back three, which we obviously been playing. I think he can do both wing backs, which he's comfortable doing. I haven't seen him in midfield, but I've been told that he's played there as well earlier in the season. So it's a great addition for us when he comes back, because he's got attributes that we value highly.
One player that you do have back this Saturday is your captain, Richie Smallwood. I think we mentioned it after Tuesday's game that it's been a long time coming, that second game of his suspension. Yeah. Did you miss him, do you feel, Graham, in the Doncaster game?
I believe so. I think Richie plays a part. That's why he's played every game for us. That he, when you're running the game through in your head, as a coach, and you see things happen, and you're almost willing the player to make this decision and that decision, and 9 times out of 10, Richie is making the decision that you think is the right decision to do it. Looking at it from afar, switch to play, passing behind, just slow the game down, press this player, this, that, he tends to make a lot of decisions right, and I certainly think he has a great influence on the players around him, the whole team, the squad. I think he makes players better playing alongside him, and I felt on last night, the first half maybe wouldn't have been as poor with Richie in the team. I think he might have changed a couple of things, got understood where the game was going, and done what it took to change that sort of momentum of the game. Look, it's not all on one player players' responsibility to change the whole performance, but we really appreciate the value that Richie brings to our team, and we never overlook it, we never take it for granted. But and it's been frustrating for him, last week, obviously before the game got called off, I was saying, well, at least you'll be available next week, but then that game got called off, so it was and we were sort of joking about it being the longest 2-game suspension ever, but I'm sure he's raring to go, and look, I do think he's a really important part of what we're doing.
Some of those aspects that you've outlined there, Graham, are those sometimes overlooked or maybe not seen by maybe us in the media or fans? The work that kind of doesn't go down as a goal or an assist or a clean sheet? Yeah,
I do, and it's not through people not looking for it, but there's a lot of things that go on into a game of football, and for other types of players to flourish, you need the sort of the opposite of that to build a team performance and stuff like that. And there's a lot of and the biggest, I think one of the biggest things in football is decision making. So it's not the actual technique of a shot or a cross or something, but it's actually the decision to do the right thing at the right time, and that's a hard skill or attribute to actually. There's no data for it. You can't be measured like that. It's just on the eye, knowing the game, knowing what your team wants to do, and he takes it forward and implements that. He implements it in himself, but he also makes sure the lads around him in the team implement it as well. So that's there's a lot of players around that do sort of the unsung work and let others grab the headlines, but if you look at Richie's playing record, it's pretty consistent. He's been in most teams, week in, week out, and it's no secret. It's because most managers have trusted him.
Did you know that you were getting that when you came to this football club? I think I'm right in saying that you worked with Richie before. Was it when you were at Scunthorpe?
Yeah.
Has he developed even more since then?
I think, definitely, because I think he's a player that plays with his brain. And like the more experience you get, the more games you get under your belt, you should get more intelligent. You should know how to win a game of football, how to influence people around you. That's why he's the captain. But I had him on loan. What was it, maybe 16, 17 season? I think you obviously a little bit younger then, and we had him for about 5 months. He fought hard to get in. He couldn't get in. We were top of League One at the time, and we had 2 midfield players, I think, that stretched their game to their maximum because they saw Richie come in, and it sort of he found it frustrating to not get in as many games as he wanted. But at each club that I've managed, when it's come round to a summer window and Richie's been out of contract, I've always made contact with him to see if he fancied reacquainting himself with us, and so I've always had a bit of contact with Richie. I've always valued him as a player for the last 7-8 years, even though I've not been working with him direct in that time. So coming in to Bradford, I knew of his qualities. I knew that how we want to play, and how we want to work day to day. That Richie's ideal for that role of leading us, and getting to this is the first exposure I've had of him playing week in, week out for me, and I haven't been disappointed. I'm just frustrated that I didn't have him at my previous clubs, because I know what a great job he had done for us.
Yeah. Just going back to what you said after the game against Doncaster, Graham, and I think you said you were going to give the players the benefit of the doubt in regards to the first half performance because of how they performed prior to that. I know there's been a bit of a layoff in between your last game and Doncaster. In terms of the aftermath of that, today and the following days in the lead up to the Accrington game, do you have to focus on that first half performance particularly, specifically, or do you give them that benefit of the doubt? I know in the past you've said that you've maybe replayed times where they've played well just to remind them of what they can do.
Yeah, I think, the aftermath is like a death or something, or a car crash. I don't think it was as bad as that, but I think I was frustrated because I think maybe the frustration was from us not playing for 2 weeks, and we're desperate to get this run, keep this run going, and claw back the points that we need to do, and and just seeing us start, and I just didn't feel our performance. And but I've spoke to a couple of players today. There was a little bit of uncertainty on our press in certain aspects, and there's Tyreek playing only his second game for us, Cav only playing his fourth or fifth game for us. It's a little bit that our midfield looked different from usual. So there was and with our lack of game time, I think it all culminated in a really slow start. I think Doncaster grew in confidence from that slow start by us, and it just it got more frustrating as we get. Even though looking back, we did have some good opportunities to get a goal in that first half, but our general play wasn't at the level what we needed it to be. But look, me and Chris sat in the office today saying, remember when we played bad or we didn't perform to the levels? It wasn't through, that's it can happen sometimes. You just don't want it to be 8 or 9 players. You want it to be 1 and 2, and the performance stays the same. So, but we just didn't get going for whatever reason. It's more of we have to show the players the contrast of the good, the bad, and the ugly, really. And not go overboard on the bad and the ugly. Let's say, look, this is what we look like when we do this, and this is what we look like when we do that. Which one do we want to be? And I know what the players want, because they've enjoyed how we go about our games. They've enjoyed how we go about our training. They've took it into games. We've got a lot of results from that. But just now and then you need a reminder of the difference, the contrast between, and it could be a position about 5 yards, it could be a run at 90% or 100%, it could be a decision in passing forwards instead of backwards. Just a little contrast to go, no, look, this is us as a team, this is what we do well. I like to stay on the positives. Ultimately, it's I know I didn't sound very positive after the game last night because of the first half and the result, obviously, but looking back, me and Chris were talking last night, for us to play so poorly in the first half and still get a point from a goal behind, sometimes you have to go, actually, from what we put into it, that's a good point. But we also have to understand that we want to be better. We need to be better if we want to, follow up on the aspirations that we all have. So, by Friday, when we're getting into our match planning for Accrington, it will be front foot, positive stuff, and these are the levels we have to reach yet again, which we've already done.
Yeah, and in terms of momentum and looking at it from a positive perspective, better to come out of a 1-1 where you've equalised and you're pushing for a winner, as opposed to having been 1-0 up and conceding a late goal and it being 1-1.
Yeah. There's always a feeling around how results happen, and win, lose or draw. There's always an emotion attached to how that result happened, and then it can take forward. So what we've tried to do in the past is, so the second half, we won the second half 1-0, we played much better, more like us, so that's where we have to. So I will give the players the benefit out of a 45-minute slow start after having 2 weeks off, basically, of not playing. And it's difficult. We are, the weather as well has affected our training schedule as well, so it's been really difficult to keep up that intensity and that momentum. So maybe the first 45 minutes was a bit of ring rust and a bit of fog in the mind. But at half time and the second half will have cleared that up, and we have to be ready to go right from the off against Accrington, because they need the points for their reasons as well.
And preparing for an Accrington game that will not see John Coleman taking that team, which feels like, how many years has it been since John Coleman hasn't taken an Accrington Stanley team? No,
that's right. It's I think they said themselves when he left, the club wouldn't be what it is or where it is if it hadn't been for him and Jimmy Bell. So it's one of them where they're ingrained in the history of Accrington Stanley. It's never down just to one guy, but it's his consistency of even having them in League One for 5 years was phenomenal, really, with the resources they have. So it would be a different experience. When even myself in my career, where if we played Aki, it's been John, and we just got to concentrate on our 11 players competing against their 11 players. But it would be an unusual Accrington to say the least.
From a manager's perspective, do you have admiration for the longevity that he achieved at that football club, and I guess alongside Jimmy, the culture and the football club that they've built.
Yeah, 100%. Look, it's a really tough job managing football clubs, and at every level. So any success, and you only get longevity through success. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen the other way. The longevity has to be earned. And he certainly earned it through various promotions, getting them into the Football League many years ago. But then, like I say, getting them to League One and sustaining League One status for a good few years. It's you got to take your hat off to that. And I think he knew what Accrington was, and managed accordingly. So it would be obviously different times there for them, and I'm sure John will go on to have success elsewhere.
I asked that question from your own perspective and a manager's perspective when you arrive at a football club. Is part of the ambition to, as you say, know the football club, understand the football club and the area and the region in which it represents and everything that comes with it? Yeah,
definitely. I think so. I think you have to understand the identity of a football club and the town or the city and the people that support it and the people that work in it, the squad, their history, where they've been, where they aspire to be, all those things. They all come into the emotional side of a football club, and I think if you can tap into that and align yourself with it and align your team with it, I think it benefits everybody. I think ultimately a football team represents its people. That's ultimately why they come into the stadium. They want to see a football team that represents their values, their beliefs, their cause, what they feel about their city or town. I've always thought that try to get a team out there that the supporters look at and say, yeah, that's a Bradford City team, or whichever club you play or work for. And I probably didn't think that way when I was a player, but certainly on the managerial side, I think it's important to try to do that. You still have your own ideas and beliefs and how you want your team to play, but there's other sides of the technical side of it about a football team, a football club, how you behave, how you talk, how you hold yourself, how you represent the club. That goes along for me as a manager, my players, my staff, anyone. You want to make your club proud, but a club is its people. So I think it's an important part of football.
Thanks, Graham. Appreciate it.
Okay, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, I'm talking about obviously John Coleman. I mean, as a player yourself, had a fantastic career in that area. I mean, sort of M65 legends and all that. He was. It does seem very without. No Accrington, no John Coleman. John Coleman is almost a bit like a sort of a Fergie gone from Man United. Sort of. You thought he'd be there forever, almost, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. It's those sort of. I think if you look at the achievements that he had there, I think it's probably 4 or 5 promotions coming up from the non-league scene into the Football League. I think he had a little brief sojourn away at Rochdale, but found himself back at Aki not long after, and just like hand in glove. That is, I think when you have that sort of longevity at a club, it goes without saying you're going to have an impact on the environment, on the feeling around a club, how it works, because you've had that time to build it and alongside other people, and so it's always going to have that feeling for him. I'm sure he might not go back there ever again, but certainly his name runs alongside Accrington Stanley as much as any individuals can with a football club. Football clubs are always bigger than any individual, but there's certain individuals that come along and represent those clubs in a different way to the rest, and I think John Coleman's name will certainly go along those lines at Accrington.
I was going to say, when you're at Burnley and you're going into the Premier League, was there still that respect for sort of like the little neighbour in a sense who was sort of constantly punching above their weight, weren't they?
Yeah, listen, there was nothing big time about us at Burnley at the time. You know what I mean? We were punching above our weight as well, so we didn't walk around with any airs and graces ourselves. So, but we played Aki in obviously quite a few friendlies. I think our reserves might have played there most weeks as well. So yeah, it's around the corner. It's in between Burnley and Blackburn, so there's a couple of miles. So yeah, I got to know a bit more of the Accrington story when I played for Burnley back in the day, because of the closeness of the two clubs, and you had nothing but admiration for the job that not just John did, but everybody attached to Accrington, because they, against all the odds, and made them a really competitive force in the EFL.
Yeah, and I think he always used to play up the playing against big team Bradford whenever they ahead of these games. I think that was part of the motivation. So presumably that will still be very much the feeling when you go there.
Yeah, but I remember saying after we beat them 1-0 that they came down to our level, which I felt was a strange thing to say. To be fair, is yeah, that was an interesting comment, which I didn't appreciate or understand at the time really. But listen, we were delighted to win the game. It was a much needed win at the time, and set off a little run of form that sort of brightened up the place and gave us belief that we could create a successful team here this season. But when a new manager comes in, or obviously it's an interim, he'll have his own ideas on what they need to do on Saturday against us, but we have to be ready for that, and we have to be ready to get to our levels. That I think if last night showed us anything, is regardless of what the opposition do, if we don't do the things that we're good at, then it doesn't matter who we play, we're going to be second best. So we have to make sure that we are absolutely clear on what makes us a good team, and then go and put it into practice.
You said earlier about sort of clearing the fog. I mean, the fact that we were talking with Sam Stubbs about the fixture list being so intense now, in a way, players must love that though, because it's sort of, it's what you want to do when you be out there playing.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of them where we knew we were having a busy period, but then you get to a game and it gets cooled off, and it's like, emotionally high and then a big drop, and then you go a week and you build up to the next one, and then the same happens there. And after the previous game we played, which we ended in dramatic fashion for us and was a big blow to take, then to have that frustration build up, and I don't know if it sucked the energy out of us going into the game last night, or just I don't know what it was. It was just maybe a culmination of a load of little things coming along and just making a bigger one. But ask any player, they want to play games of football. That's what they feel they're on this earth for. And I'm the same as a football manager. So there's only so much you can do in training at this stage of the season. With the amount of games that you play. I think by the time we get into this Saturday Tuesday, the players will be ready to take on those challenges.
And very briefly, just obviously going back to Dan Oyegoke, I mean, keeping in touch with him as you have done sort of through the season, I mean, that must have been important in keeping his spirits up, because it's all very well the player being told, oh yeah, we'll hopefully get you back, but having that constant communication must sort of keep his spirits high, knowing that yes, it is going to happen.
Yeah, I think so. I think that was the reason. I want every player to feel value with us and feel that they've got a part to play with us. And I didn't want him to go back to Brentford and be out of sight, out of mind. I wanted him to make sure that he understood that we look forward to working with him whenever that opportunity arises. So there was a little bit. It was just a bit of care and attention, really. I think everyone appreciates that a little bit. I think we're all human, and we all have that side of us where we want to feel important, we want to feel valued, we want to be part of a team. Certainly if you're part of a football club, it's a group thing. You don't want to be individualised and left alone. So I think it's important that we didn't want him to come back and feel like a stranger. We want him to come back and he's straight into it. And every conversation he's just been ultra positive. Probably to the point where I'm thinking I was getting him back sooner than first thought. He would tell I'll be back in 2 weeks, but then we'd speak to somebody at Brentford and they said no, it's more like 6, and this, that, the other. So he was, but I like that. I like people that believe, have positive beliefs and look on the bright side of life, and so I've learned that about Dan, that he's a really positive guy, and I think the more people you have around your environment like that, then it makes the whole place just a much better place to be.
And for him coming back, it won't be a case of coming back and maybe just playing a few games for the sake of it. He could potentially be playing a part in a very big part of the season. They could be very big games ahead of him, couldn't they?
Yeah, well, that was part of the, when we obviously told of his diagnosis and how long he'd be out for and when potentially he'd be available for, we actually thought, well, long shot, but it could be a really vital stage of the season, and to bring in a player of his calibre and quality, and certainly somebody who was really popular with the rest of the players as well. I think it was a no-brainer for us. So Ryan did a great job there, keeping that deal going and keeping that open. So we had the opportunity to bring him back. So it'd be good to see him, because there is a little bit. I only had him for 3 days training and 10 minutes of a game. So I don't know him intimately as a footballer, but I like what I saw in that brief time.
And as you say, that many strings to his bow potentially. With all these games coming up, it could be absolutely a great asset to have.
Yeah, vital for us. That's what it is. I think they're worth the weight in gold, players that can play in 2 or 3 positions. It keeps your squad tight. It keeps them all involved. Keeps them together. And that's what we've been trying to create over the last 3 or 4 months. So I think when players are open-minded to that and will sacrifice themselves for the betterment of the team, then it's you've got a proper team player on your hands. So I think wherever we ask Dan to compete for us and play, then he's going to give us everything he's got, because he's a young man that's got a bright future and he's ambitious. So. But when you've got those sort of aspirations, you need to be on the pitch to realise them. So he'll be coming back hungry to compete with the rest of the players to get in the team.